Because it is a hard thing to articulate, and then they're stripping it down to like
Physical attraction, active
and
service.
acts of service. Yeah. It's like, okay, someone did something nice for you. Guess you gotta love them.
Yeah. Hello, clowns.
I'm Amee.
I'm Yuchen, and we're the hosts of Clown Vibes Podcast.
We're just two best friends who get together to laugh and discuss a variety of topics.
From all things pop culture to navigating through adulthood as Asian Americans and more, with our very own clown spin, of course.
We're so glad to have you here to clown around with us, and we really hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Clown Vibes. We have a really fun episode planned for today. I hope you're ready to just clown around with us. It's Friday for us, so we're definitely in the clowning mood.
Oh, 100% in the clown mood.
All right. I want to start off this episode by saying that I recently started, I haven't finished the Love is Blind after the Alter episodes. I think I'm on episode 2. And I think this is where I dropped off last season too, because I'm just tired of watching these people and their stories. But so you watched it, right? Did you finish it?
I did finish it. It's only 3 episodes. So you only have one more. The last one sucks. Everything sucks, honestly.
Okay, but I just want to mention, because we have a lot to talk about today, the one clown moment is when Cole just starts hitting on Alexa's stepmom, which like every time Alexa's stepmom comes into the camera, I'm like, you're really hot. So I get it.
Like clearly so drunk by that point because he cannot control himself. Like everyone is telling him to stop and he's just enamored.
All right, what else have you been watching this week?
On Tuesday this week for $5 movie Tuesday. Actually, it's $5.50 now because of inflation. I went to go see this movie called Missing, which is one of those movies that's like a horror movie filmed entirely like you're watching a Max screen. And the premise of the movie is basically this like girl's mom goes missing and then she's trying to figure out, she's like maybe 16, 17, she's in high school trying to figure out like what happened to her mom. And it was so funny. Like it's a scary movie. Obviously it's like a little scary, but I think they did such a good job of nailing how teenagers talk right now, how they interact with each other, and how crafty they are, like searching things up. And they had so much funny stuff in it that the movie like wasn't that scary.
Oh, interesting.
And it was good.
I looked this up because you give sus recommendations for movies and shows.
86% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes, that's what I looked it up. I want to like clarify that it is 86% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Have you heard that AMC might be implementing? I don't know if it's alleged. I think it's actually coming. So you're hearing this third or fourth from us. But have you heard that AMC is implementing dynamic pricing?
Yes, I did see that. And it's actually only for limited times, according to the one article I read. It's not all the time. It's at select timings they'll implement dynamic pricing. So AKA like concert pricing, where the better your seat, the more it is.
Exactly. Which like AMC kind of already has dynamic pricing for like times and like the type of film that you're watching. Like if it's in IMAX or if it's in 3D, it'll be a surge pricing. But now they're like discussing specifically like for the middle seats. And I heard that it's just for like really big blockbuster films.
Interesting.
That they'll do it. And the one article that I read gave the example for Batman, which I'm like, the 3-hour movie that should not have been 3 hours is the one where you tested dynamic pricing for.
I went to go see it, and halfway through, I played on my phone for like 30 minutes because I was just tired. And he mumbles the whole time. I had no idea what he was saying. All of the villains looked the same at the end. I was so confused.
I will say I watched it, I think, just through HBO at home. And you know how during the car chase scene, the super long car chase scene. I like basically fell asleep. I dozed off. I woke up and they were still in this car chase scene. And I remember telling Nico about this, and he's like, that was the best scene. Goes to show how different we are.
Yes, I don't even remember that scene. AKA, that's probably when I was looking at my phone.
But speaking of 3-hour movies, I think this transitions well to our main topic of this episode.
Yeah. Okay, so today we are talking about one of the classic Bollywood films, Kal Ho Naa Ho, that came out in 2003. If you're around our age and Indian, I'm sure that you've seen this, or if you haven't, you must watch it immediately. It is one of the best ones and definitely an experience.
I will say if you're not Indian and you like don't watch Bollywood films, I don't think like our discussion will specifically focus on Bollywood. I think we're gonna like bring in aspects of like romantic comedies in general and like watching them growing up and like how that's impacted like how we view dating and relationships. And this is actually my second time watching a Bollywood film, so we'll have a different perspective. But this will be like a fun episode, even if you haven't watched it.
For sure. And if you want to watch it before you listen to this, we will write in the comments where you can watch it because Netflix is a hoe and the movie is leaving before this episode comes out.
I think this is my first like official rom-com Bollywood film. And I just want to make the direct comparison right now. It was giving me like very musical vibes.
Oh yeah.
Like the acting is very like over the top. There's a lot of like comedy. They burst out into like songs.
Definitely.
It like reminded me a lot of Mamma Mia and how like there are like core characters, there are side characters, which we'll get into. But yes, so like if you've never watched Bollywood, don't be like intimidated. Just like read the subtitles, which is what I do for English like films anyways.
Yeah, that's a good point that it's very musical acting. That's pretty much how all of the Bollywood films around that time were. It's a little bit more serious these days, but it's definitely more fun when it's musical and theatrical in this way.
And I just want to give background to our audience. Like, why did we choose to do an episode on this?
About a month ago, I rewatched this for the first time in probably 10 years. Like it's been a very long time since I had seen this movie. I watched it with one of my friends, and the whole time we were so shook at how actually bad and toxic this movie is. And we're really discussing like we watched this when we were 10. Like I wonder how this has shaped the way we view things. And it also has pretty much most Indian family household stereotypes of how they interact with each other. That was really interesting to watch as an adult. So just seems like a good one to discuss and explore further.
Yeah, and I think like when you told me this, obviously I didn't have context for the movie, but I was like, rom-coms in general, I think are very problematic. I do think that you watch more rom-coms nowadays than I do. And I used to love rom-coms. Like they were, when I was younger, they were like my favorite genre to watch. But as I went through my first heartbreak, I feel like I never watched it again. First of all, spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen the movie and want to be shocked, you need to see the movie first. Like we're going to tell you all of the twists and turns.
Yes. But if you've already watched it or you don't really care, feel free to like continue to listen to this podcast.
Yes. Okay. So the way we're going to break it up, because it is a 3-hour movie, is we'll go through the characters quickly, discuss the core plot, and then discuss some of the side plots because there are a ton of side plots that are intertwined throughout the whole movie.
Yes. So the basic premise of the movie is a very stereotypical storyline, I think, for romantic comedies. There's one girl and two guys, and basically they're in this love triangle. And that's kind of it. Like the whole 3 hours
Mm-hmm.
is like exploring like how they each met, their relationship to one another, their like family backgrounds, and how that like plays into the love story. And the ultimate conclusion is like kind of who she ends up with,
Yeah.
which we'll get into in the episode. But this storyline, when I was like watching it, I was like, Vampire Diaries? Like that Bridget Jones Diaries,
Yeah.
Sex in the City, like this love triangle storyline has been done over and over again. And I'm just like, wait, first of all, have you ever been in a love triangle? Like, how realistic?
I have not.
I was in like a small love triangle very, very early on, senior year of high school or something. And I was just like, this is stupid.
Yeah, this movie has a lot of different tropes, like the love triangle, semi enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
A lot of different common themes that they just threw into one movie.
Yeah. So my first thought is like, is the love triangle storyline outdated? Is it not relatable anymore? I think the most relatable part is like when you're in a situation. What if they do a rom-com about a situationship? I mean, they kind of have. I feel like Bridget Jones' Diary is like very much a situationship, but
Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of a recent movie that's very love triangle-esque. Although they just haven't been doing that many rom-coms lately.
that's true. Everyone's jaded.
Yeah. Okay,
All
so to
right.
get into the characters, main characters are Naina, Rohit, and Aman. What are your thoughts on all three?
You can tell by the budget of this film that they only had select areas that they could film in. So they
Yeah,
keep
oh,
filming in
totally.
the same areas. But you see Naina, and at first I was like, wait, is she white?
Oh
She
my God,
looks
yes.
like Katie Holmes.
Every person in this movie is extremely fair, which is a critique I have, and very reminiscent of that time where everyone wanted to be white
White.
passing in a way. Yeah. And it it was a little not jarring to see, but it was definitely something that shocked me when I rewatched it.
Naina's probably like my least favorite character besides like
Mm-hmm.
the least like favorite main character.
Yeah. And then secondary characters is mostly Naina's family. So it's her mom, their grandma lives with them, who is her dad's mom, and her dad is no longer with them, her younger brother, and her younger sister, who is adopted. And
Mm-hmm.
the grandma hates the younger sister, the grandma hates the mom.
But she loves the son. Of
Yes,
course, she loves the son.
it is the most stereotypical Indian family dynamic. It really drives me insane to watch all of the fighting.
I think another secondary character is Sweetu, her best
Mm-hmm.
friend that she like is also her neighbor, and like Sweetu's mom, who's also like somewhat in the film
I
too.
think it's her
Um,
sister.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Just like a much older sister.
Yeah. And then there are like side characters, right?
Which is like random people that everyone is like dating, people they bring in that's funny.
Yeah.
The goal of the grandma is to get Naina married. And so throughout the movie, she brings some random boys and their families to introduce Naina to them.
Is that the goal
Um,
of every Indian
it's the
grandma?
goal of every Indian grandma. It was like a little bit triggering. They did it so dramatically that it wasn't really triggering to me, but I was just like, why? Also, she's
Yeah.
only 23. Like, let's just set that scene right now. She's 23 years old. She's a baby.
And just to like set the context, this is based in New York City. So they're Indian Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also like very relatable.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's get into the core story. So, I guess let's talk about how Naina and Rohit are friends first.
Mm-hmm.
So, they go to an evening MBA class together. That's how they met. They just have a very best friend dynamic where he is very girl crazy, always trying to get a date, and she's just along for the ride to listen. She's portrayed as like really nerdy, uptight.
She's portrayed as nerdy because she wears glasses.
Yeah.
That's like it. And she's always like in her nerdy phase, she's always carrying around this like textbook.
One thing that confused me is like Rohit going to this MBA class makes sense. He has some kind of corporate job that you see
Yeah.
him doing. Naina, who the heck knows what she's doing besides this evening MBA class? And that's fine. Like, you don't need to be doing anything else. But then why are you taking an evening MBA class? Like, why aren't
Yeah.
you just in normal MBA school?
That's why I don't think they like gave depth into her
No,
character. Like it was only about she was only nerdy because of her appearance, not because of like her aspirations or what she wanted to do.
she's very 2D. Her only role in the movie is as like a shiny object for the boys
Yeah.
to fight over.
Okay, and then who's Aman?
Okay, so Aman is their neighbor who moves in, and because of their very toxic family dynamic, they're always fighting, they're always like upset. He moves in across the street and very quickly inserts himself into their family and makes lots of jokes, like tries to really liven the situation up. So in a lot of ways, her family sees him as like their angel who brought joy and laughter into their sad house.
Which, like, I know this is a movie and things progress really quickly, but what I was like very alarmed by was like, why is he just suddenly inserting himself
Mm-hmm.
in like the thick of things with this family? Like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but I feel like if someone tried to do that with me, I'd be like, back off. This is
Yeah.
like a private, but they were just all very accepting of him and just like, he was also like meddling a lot.
Yeah, he was meddling so much. I think it makes sense. The family really liked him pretty immediately because he was so helpful, but I think the meddling went too far. So basically, like at the beginning, Naina hates Aman. She doesn't like that he's around all the time. He like teases her
Of
a lot, which
course.
she doesn't, yeah, which
He
she
calls her
doesn't like.
dorky.
Yeah. Actually, he calls her Chashmis,
Oh,
meaning
yeah.
like
What's the
glasses
translation?
face, like wearing
Ah,
glasses, like four eyes.
that's so outdated. Maybe that like speaks to
Yeah.
like the time period it was created. Glasses are
Yeah.
in right now.
Glasses are in. So basically, Rohit also meets Aman, and the three of them become friends. Oh, wait, hold on. Backing up, because Aman teases Naina a lot, she basically lies and says that Rohit is her boyfriend. And so they all go out one night and to basically keep up the act and pretend like they're dating, but get very drunk. And this is basically the start of their true friendship. What did you
Yes.
think about the club song scene? That song is a classic, by the way.
My first reaction every time Nana sings is I'm just like, is that her real voice?
No,
Because
it's
the
not.
voice that she like speaks and the like voice that I hear singing is very different.
The way Indian movies are done is like they have like older singers sing pretty much every song. So it never makes sense.
Why is it older?
Bollywood is very like traditional and rooted in nepotism and like, you know,
Got it.
the same people do the same things. So they found these older
Ah.
singers that are so good, they're just going to sing until they die. Is pretty much the situation. So that's why it doesn't match up.
So I thought the scene was like interesting itself. Like I really enjoyed the dance scenes, but the scene where she like gets up and just like takes off her clothes and
Yeah.
like starts dancing and like that becomes the like time that the guys notice her is when she like takes off her clothes and maybe her glasses. She's just like very much objectified
Yes.
in the dance scene, and that the fact that that was like the catalyst for both of them
Mm-hmm.
realizing that they're into her, I'm just like but I feel like it's rooted in truth. Like, unfortunately, a lot
Yeah.
of guys just like realize that they're into this girl first by like physical appearance.
Yeah. Because they don't set her character up at all, except for being
Mm-hmm.
really uptight, to see her do a complete 180, presumably only because she's drunk,
Yeah.
was very lazy.
Yeah.
they they just took the easy way out and it showed. Okay, I think the catalyst of Neda realizing she loves Aman is basically they have a family restaurant that they serve
Mm-hmm.
American food at, and it is failing. They're having a lot of trouble getting money. They're not having enough customers. So Aman basically comes in as like we need to be an Indian restaurant. There's no other Indian restaurant around here. You just need to do what you know. And he helps them transform the restaurant into a successful, extremely successful Indian restaurant.
Over one day.
Over one day. And that is when Naina like really sees him as this angel who is helping to fix their family and like helping to like put things in place.
But the fact that she thinks that it's love, I would have been like, okay, yeah. I actually don't hate this person. He's actually a nice person, rather than I'm in love with him.
She went from full-on hate to immediately thinking she's in love with him. And it's just like the first person who's done something nice for her. Like, it's truly just the first person.
But the fact that like he came up with the idea, not the two people that are in MBA classes, is just hilarious to me.
That's a good point. Okay, yeah. So basically she figures out she's in love with him. Rohit figures out that he's in love with Naina. And
how though?
Yeah, I didn't really understand what the 180 on Rohit's part was about. I even Googled it because I was like, maybe I missed it.
I really think it's because he just realized he was attracted to her physically.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, basically overnight he's like, I'm in love with her. These people throw love around like candy.
All willy-nilly, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is very common in rom-coms, and I think maybe a little bit hurtful to like the younger audience who doesn't really understand what love is. Which brings me to this point. I know there's like this one scene. It's very Sex in the City like, where they like interview different sub characters, and the kind of question that they like discuss is, what does like falling in love mean to you? And no one is able to explicitly articulate it, which is kind of the natural way to talk about love, I think, which also makes it like very problematic, I think, for the younger generation. Is you see in this rom-com, they throw around the word love like 24/7 throughout every single scene. But like when they actually get into the nitty-gritty thing about love, and even towards the end of the film, I still don't understand why they love each other, truly.
Totally.
And so when you're watching it as like a younger kid, you kind of think like, oh, I'm supposed to love this person that like I actually am just physically attracted to.
Yeah.
You get confused. And I think that confusion leads to like, even when you're in your 20s or 30s, you still don't truly know like what love means.
Yeah. Because it is a hard thing to articulate, and then they're stripping it down to like
physical attraction, acts of service.
Yeah. It's like, okay, someone did something nice for you. Guess you gotta love them. Guess that's 1 + 1 = 2. Like yeah, so Naina tells her friend Sweetu, and Rohit tells Aman that he loves Naina. And so they both
love a different person.
Yeah, they both love a different person, and their friends give them the advice of telling the other person. However, Naina calls Rohit to tell him instead of actually just going to Aman. And Rohit is thinking, oh, she's going to tell me she loves me. Sets up this elaborate lunch where he's wearing a suit and a red tie and got like violinists and flowers. And she comes, sees none of this, or ignores all of it, sits down and is like, I love Aman. And then Rohit just loses it, like in his expression. And then he's just like, okay, yeah, you should tell him. She takes the flowers and then goes to Aman.
How does she get into an MBA class if she's like so unaware of this? But also, does that mean she's just a little bit too caught up in her own business and her own problems to like really care about the periphery characters? Because I feel that way about like how she treats Sweetu.
Oh yes, agreed. I hate how
like
she treats.
I feel like Naina is just in her own world, and it's another reason why I don't like her as a character. It's very reminiscent of Carrie from Sex in the City. Like Carrie too is just very caught up in her own problems.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a combo of that, and she's just very naive, because this is probably her first interaction of liking someone, of being in like having feelings. So she's just really caught up in her own love, quote unquote. Okay, so then she steals the flowers and takes the flowers to Aman. It's like raining on the way there for God knows what reason. Why? Anyway, so she gets to his house. He opens the door, and while she's going to him, Rohit has called Aman and said, she loves you. Like, he's given her the heads up, which I feel like was not his place.
Yeah.
So he knows when Naina comes, like, what's going on. And he's so mean to her. He will not let her say what she wants to say and like tell him how she feels, and is instead saying he doesn't like her dress and just kind of being mean.
Yeah, that was like, I think, the worst scene for him as a character. I do think he like redeems himself a lot through the rest of the film. But that scene was also very triggering because you know how like sometimes a guy will do a complete 180 on you and you don't really know like the cause of it. And it's because they have their own like issues that they're just like lashing out at you, or they don't know how to like they haven't been in therapy, so they don't know how to like handle their emotions and also deal with like the new information that's brought to you. But I think he like handled it so poorly. I mean,
so poorly.
Basically, like when she confesses her love for him, or she hasn't even yet.
No.
Because she sees this photo.
She sees a photo of him with a bride, and he's wearing like a suit or something. And she asks, like, oh, what's this? And he says, it's my wife, which no one knew. Everyone shook. Like, as an audience member, you're like, wait, what? Well, I guess actually as an audience member, you knew something weird was going on, but you didn't know what. And so you believe him when he says kind of that it's his wife, and you're confused. And so then she's obviously super upset. Apparently, like, they're good friends, and she doesn't know that he's married, which is crazy. And she leaves upset. And then you find out, which is a huge plot twist, that Aman is sick and has pretty much very little time to live, and that he does love Naina, but to protect her, he is not telling her because he doesn't want to basically be like, I love you, and then die.
I mean, but she doesn't know this yet.
Yeah, she doesn't know any of this. Only as an audience member do you know this situation.
Yeah. So she's like heartbroken, and there's like this entire scene where they're like just crying in the rain. And I think it's just so clownish because both Naina and Rohit like return their like red item that they bought, and I'm just like, aren't you guys both in the rain with this like item? How are you able to return it?
Yeah, like, didn't you take the tag off? Like, what kind of return policies did they have in 2003? Yeah, so then it goes into this story basically where you know what's going on, but the characters don't.
Okay, Aman and Rohit are best friends, I think. Yeah. At this point, like, there's a bromance going on, which is actually very cute and really well done. But agreed. Aman kind of like tells Rohit that like he knows how to get Naina to like fall in love with him within like 6 days or something. Yeah, and it is 6 days. It's a fun little scene. It's very reminiscent of like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Yeah. I don't know if you watched it, but like kind of similar, but the opposite. I think it's like because Aman is like speaking to him. This is like early 2000s, right? So like tech is not that high tech. And he has this like a big old like headset that Rohit's wearing, and Aman's just like talking into it. And I'm like, how is Naina like so oblivious to the fact that like he's acting so strangely? And yeah, but he like basically instructs him to like pretend to be like hard to get, but then like switch it up on her. And he even like specifically makes a statement where it's like, if you act like you like her, then she won't fall for you, or something like that. He's like making a very blanket statement. I wanted to like pause on that. What were your thoughts on that whole generalization? Do you think like when guys show interest, it's like uninteresting for you?
Unfortunately, as much as I don't like this, I think that it is the way to get her to think about him more, right? He's basically pulling away so that she's like, what's going on, and has to think about their relationship. I think that it's a sick way to do it, but
Okay, it
it
works.
works. Yeah.
It works in this situation. And
Yeah.
suddenly, but I don't understand why it works because suddenly she's in love with him, which is weird because she was so heartbroken over Aman. And there's like even the scene with her mom where her mom kind of coaches her and is like, do you think you'll ever be able to love again? And like she's so devastated that like
Hmm.
it seems like she will never be able to love again. But suddenly she's loving again.
Yeah. What I don't like in this entire movie, what I think drives me the most insane, is that she's never given time to process her feelings. She's never
Mm-mm.
given a true choice. At every turn, she's being manipulated by someone. And she has no time, space. She maybe is not even able to understand what her feelings are before they throw her into the next game.
Unfortunately, I think that's actually very common in real life too.
Yeah.
Like you hear of people jumping from like relationship to relationship. And I think like just now we're kind of talking about it more to the point where like this actually may not be the best way to like get over someone.
Yeah.
But I actually think like this whole thing is very common in
Yeah,
real life.
fair. But it happened so quickly, and then all of a sudden she loves him.
All of a sudden she loves him, and maybe you can like fill in the blanks, but I don't know how they get from that to like an engagement so fast.
Same. So, okay, so before they get to the engagement, basically she falls in love with him. There's this whole like song scene where they're like go hanging out, whatever. And then she walks in on Rohit and Aman talking about the scheme, like getting the girl in 6 days. And obviously, she's very
Yes.
hurt by it. She's like, "This is you're playing a game." She runs off to her like bridge area park thing where she always goes to cry.
Yeah.
And her mom comes and basically convinces her that like Rohit loves her, so it's fine that they did this. And like, doesn't she want to be in love?
So much meddling from the family. And also, how does the
So
mom
much
know
meddling.
that
Yeah, that all
Rohit
this is
loves
going
her?
on.
Like, none of this makes sense. But then suddenly, like, she's getting proposed to, and no one questions it.
No one questions it. So the day that the mom, or that same day, the mom goes to tell her, like, you should pursue this. She goes on a date that night. Everyone sees her out. Everyone is there waiting for her to go to this date in this like sparkly dress. She goes and he proposes. And you're like, what? Are you not going to date? Are you not going to have time to get over the fact that you love someone else?
Yeah. Obviously,
It's
I think that became a problem later on because I
yeah.
felt like I was like, oh, it's the end of the movie now. Nope.
No, there's
You
still
got
an
another
hour
like
left.
hour.
Yeah. I think they hurried up the engagement basically because they had spent so long in the exposition that they were like, okay, we gotta wrap this up immediately. And this was the only way to wrap it up for them.
Okay, fast forward by like a few days. And they suddenly
Yeah.
have like an engagement party where Amon basically falls ill in a very dramatic scene. He's
Very,
like,
and no one notices. Very dramatic. He's like falling, he's like clutching his chest and his arm, and everyone is just dancing. He's in the middle and no one sees him fall. So he's in the hospital. No one knows he's sick still, only his mom and his like uncle. So he's in the hospital, and Naina and Rohit go to a jewelry store to shop. And at the
mm-hmm.
jewelry store, they run into Aman's fake wife.
Who's also his doctor.
Yeah, who's actually his doctor. And
Yeah.
so they run into her. They're saying, like, oh, hey, like, we're Aman's friends. It's so nice to meet you. And she does not know that Aman lied and said that they were married. So, and she's there with her husband. So she's like, oh, hey, you want
Yeah.
to meet my husband? Brings her husband over. And then everything clicks into place because her husband is like, oh, it's really sad that Aman's sick. Basically exposes his sickness, which is crazy.
Yes. I think that plot twist was really well done. What like was shocking to me or like what was clownish was the fallout of that. So basically I think Naina realizes that she's not over him, which shocking to no one except for maybe the people in this film. But of course you're not over him. And she's just so sad all the time. But like Amin goes and like explains himself to both Naina and Rohit. I think it's funny because he explained himself to Rohit before he explained himself to Naina. And Rohit's mad because he's like, you lied to me that you love her. Which I'm just like, why are you not upset that he's dying? But you're more upset that like he loves her.
Yeah. But I did not like that Amin was basically like, you're not allowed to feel this because at least you get the girl. And it's like, well, he gets a girl that's in love with someone else. Whatever his feelings are it's fine. Like he's allowed to feel however he feels in this moment of betrayal.
Yeah, and like in his explanation for like why he did these things, he's like, he loves her so much that he wants to set her up with like someone to love her. Which, have you ever watched Eat, Pray, Love?
No, I haven't.
But the premise of that is like her husband dies and he sets her up on this like journey to like rediscover herself and eventually like fall in love with again. This is similar, but also I think this is way more manipulative because you're so still around and you're still like causing her in a way to like fall in love with you. She's not gonna forget you, but you're like pretending you don't like her, that you're like trying to set her up with your best friend who's also her best friend. And the fact that Rohit like continued on with the engagement knowing that she loved someone else was just like mind-boggling to me. Like, why not just wait?
Yeah, I think once you get the families involved, very hard to wait. Second, I think he was basically just trying to give Amin his last wish in a way of seeing Naina settled before he dies, which I think is unfair.
Yeah, everything is so selfishly motivated. Like the main drivers of the plots are very selfishly motivated. Is that representative of real life? Maybe, actually. But I think it does show how toxic people can be. I just think it's crazy that people just accepted these like really manipulative behaviors.
Yeah. In a way, Naina like romanticizes it. Because whenever he goes to explain it to her, she's like, you love me so much that you want to see, like, you want me to be happy. And it's like, what? Whoa. Like, yes, that is part of it. But like, where is the hurt that he has like played games with your whole life?
And during like their wedding, she's basically crying the entire time.
Well, okay, that's also because she's leaving the house while she's getting married. It's very normal for brides to cry at their wedding.
Oh.
In Indian culture, especially when you're leaving, like your parents are crying, you're crying, even though you're not leaving and it's not the same anymore.
It's just dramatic.
It's just the whole ceremony of the day causes a lot of tears. So I did not think that the tears were like about Amin. I just was like, oh, she's a bride, she's crying.
And basically the story ends where like you find out that Amin dies like very soon after the wedding, and then like 20 years later she's like telling this love story to her daughter that she has with Wahid, and like she's like, and this is my love story, which I'm just like, why are you telling this like little girl that she's gonna romanticize the same things that you did and it'll be cyclical?
Yeah, and it's just the biggest indicator that she's never gotten over a single thing.
Yes,
she has never processed it. Poor Rohit like has to, there's basically a third person in their relationship at all times because no one let her process that situation. It was a lot. Also, did you notice that at the end her other daughter comes to say like, hey, come inside, she's fully white? Just a white girl. And like, it's not even just an Indian person that's fair, it's a white person.
So that was basically the premise, the entire plot line of the show, it like heavily revolves around this love triangle. But there's like so many side plots, side characters that bring a lot of problematic parts of
Totally.
this very problematic show or story.
The whole movie is so problematic. There's not one scene that's not. Okay, let's get into some of the side plots then. The first one I want to talk about is the family dynamic she has, where her grandma hates her mom and her grandma hates, like, loathes with the most intense passion the adopted youngest daughter. Like, the youngest daughter breathes and she yells.
Yeah. There was even a scene where like she hits Gia, the youngest daughter, which is like very triggering for me. I was never hit as a kid, but I'm just like, you should not be hitting your grandchild. And like throughout the entire film, you're not really privy to why she hates her so much. You just assume it's because she's adopted, but you can like visibly tell that this affects Gia. Like all Gia wants is to be accepted by her grandmother, and like her grandmother just like hates her. But there's a side plot where at the very end of the film that it's like basically revealed that the dad who
committed suicide
had an affair with another woman, and that produced Gia, and the mom actually adopted Gia and accepted Gia into her family when her biological mother didn't. I think that was actually a bigger plot twist than like everything else in the show.
I agree. That one was super shocking. And then immediately the grandma feels so bad because now Gia is her bloodline, which is sick behavior. It makes me so sad.
Yes, it's like it's a very real and like disgusting revelation that is, I thought, a little bit jarring to be a part of a rom-com Bollywood film, but I don't know if you have a perspective of like why they would include such like a real sad topic in what is like a pretty much stereotypical love triangle story.
This is how not all, but most Bollywood rom-coms is that there's always an underlying super sad plot. There's always like family issues in the background or like some other big issue.
Yeah, the grandma's like the most dramatic character of the film, and she's also, I think, the worst actress. Like every expression she has is just so dramatic for no reason. The one scene where she's like crying about Gia and like her realization that she's been a shitty person, her crying is just so bad. I don't know if you saw it when you rewatched it, but I was just like, this is the worst fake cry I've ever seen.
I didn't even notice because it's just par for the course. But also when this revelation happens, the grandma all of a sudden loves the mom again.
Yes.
And stops blaming her basically for her son's death and does an extreme 180 of like, I'm so sorry I've been treating you this way. Which it's good that she acknowledges it, but it's still just crazy. The whole situation is like hard to wrap your mind around.
The like trauma that Gia experienced from like being rejected by her grandma will carry over with her into her adult life, despite the amount of therapy that she has. And so just like an apology, like being accepted, like the damages are done.
No, totally. And it's so hard to see throughout the whole movie when she's really mean to Gia, because Gia is this adorable, like 8-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So cute and sweet. And she is trying at all times to do her best to make her grandma not hate her. And it is heartbreaking to watch.
And also I think like the grandma really hates Gia because she thinks that Gia is like the catalyst for her son's suicide, which then she realizes is not. And I do want to like give props for the show for not, I think, romanticizing the dad in this instance. I think even though he wasn't like a character in the show, they really like give the mom props for like basically calling him out and saying like he left us. And it's obvious that Nina also has like daddy issues, of course.
Oh, totally. Because no one's allowed to process anything and they don't talk about anything, which is very accurate in Indian families. It's not unusual. And it's just sad, and it is what it is.
Another side plot I had kind of alluded to earlier, but Naina's like not very good friends with, or not a good friend to her friend Sweetu. And like when you're first introduced to Sweetu, Naina like basically says, "Oh, she's my neighbor who like can't keep off weight," which I was just like, what? And that basically becomes like Sweetu's character. Like she's sweet and she's like boy crazy about this guy named Frankie, but her main thing is that she's fat.
Yeah.
Which I was just like, what is the purpose of this?
Yeah, fat shaming is really prevalent in Indian culture, in Bollywood, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
I feel like Sweetu like was on purpose, like kind of there to like differentiate between Naina and like Sweetu, like how Naina is like so beautiful, which Sweetu is actually like a really nice and caring friend. Like Naina's a terrible friend.
Yeah, and Sweetu's so funny and like lively and sees the good in everything. And that should really be the juxtaposition between the two, when Naina is really cranky, mean, you know, thinks very pessimistically about everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, Naina also just dismisses pretty much everything Sweetu says, like at all times.
Yeah, it really like brought a lot of comparisons for me to like Carrie in Sex and the City. Like Carrie's just a really shitty friend to like Miranda and Samantha, and she's not a girl's girl, which I think kind of like brings us to how we want to like wrap this up. So obviously like we've seen our fair share of, well, you've seen your fair share of like Bollywood rom-coms and Hollywood rom-coms. I think the main difference is that Hollywood rom-coms really just focus on the main storyline. Like, just
agreed.
The like, if this was made in like a Hollywood way, it would just be the love triangle. There wouldn't be so many side characters. And but similarly, I think there would not be any like depth in character development as well.
Yeah. How do you think seeing stories play out this way in multiple movies has affected the way we as a society think about romance and think about relationships?
I think it really like simplifies relationships in a way that like makes it very two-dimensional. And it actually, I think the reason why I think it's a little bit harmful is it doesn't teach young women or young men, but it's usually young women who are watching this, like how to assess different situations. Because since like a lot of these situations are so two-dimensional, we kind of take things as face value. It's he doesn't like you or he likes you. Suddenly you're in love with him. Suddenly like you're heartbroken, but you're not like learning how to like process your emotions. You're not learning how to like identify when you're being manipulated. You're not learning how to like set boundaries, because I don't think in a single moment Naina like was able to like stand up for herself or like set
I
boundaries.
agree.
And I think it's like kind of why we're struggling in our like 20s and 30s, like rediscovering how to do these things ourselves, because like relationships and dating is not two-dimensional like the way that they portrayed it here. It's actually very complex, with lots and lots of layers. And I think it's also why sometimes it feels like it's the blind leading the blind when we're like talking to each other about our relationship issues or like girlfriends in general, because we've never been taught about this by our parents, especially in, I think, Asian households. I think like relationships are just like never discussed, and it's very cyclical because our parents don't know what they're doing either.
Yeah. Everyone is just figuring it out as they go. I think another thing rom-coms push is the speed of everything. And obviously it's a quick 1.5 hour movie. They have to push everything together for the sake of the plot and getting you through the movie quickly. But I think it translates into life, where we feel this pressure to make things happen quickly. And if a relationship is not progressing in a fast enough manner based on what we've seen in the media, you think something's wrong, and it's not. There's just other things like happening, and it doesn't need to be like a movie. Your life doesn't have to be a fairy tale in that way.
I remember sometimes like when we would talk about our dating situations or maybe specifically like your relationship situation, sometimes you do bring up like, if this was a movie, I would want this to happen. Yeah. And I think that is a direct impact from like kind of watching some of these films, is like we've kind of romanticized like these plot lines and how certain things are supposed to play out. And reality is it will not play out the way that these movies have portrayed it to be. In this film, they very much have a clear, happy ending. Yeah. And that is almost never the case in reality romance.
Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on all social media at Clown Vibes Podcast or email us at clownvibespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you enjoy our show and want to support us, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. That's it for today. Bye, clowns.
Bye, clowns.